Welcome back for my February recommendations. I hope you guys have been doing well and reading some good books. If you've got anything that you'd like me to check out that you think might warrant my attention, feel free to drop a comment below. I'm always curious to see and find new sources of entertainment, so I'm curious to see what people are buzzing about. This month has been pretty good. I will say there's a lot of good ones to choose. It's kind of all different across the board. So we will start off with The City Without End by Kelly Jensen. This is the first book I read by Kelly Jensen, and I must say I was really kind of blown away a little bit. It's a sci-fi book that I almost didn't pick up because sometimes sci-fi gets a little bit too much science-y for me. I don't mind some explanations, but sometimes they get really into the technical, like flying ships, and then they like flip all the switches and they tell you all the like physics that go into it, and I'm kind of like, okay, can we keep it moving? But this one was not like that, so I really appreciated that. It's really low on the heat scale. It's kind of more of like a young adult, maybe. I would say this is even be safe for a teen read, really. We've got two main characters, of course. We have Kato, who's a rich and trying to help improve the lives of people underneath him. He is in charge of drawing up contracts, and so he's trying to rewrite some contracts and create new ones that are fair to everybody involved. And then the other one we have is Price, who's also from what they call founding families, which is the top tier of the cream of the cream. And he actually has kind of not run away from home, but disappeared from the top and has set up shop down in the lower regions. So the way that this world kind of works is like if you live in the upper crust like regions, like or levels, or I think they put it by levels 1 through like 7, like that's kind of like, ooh, those are like high-end rich levels, and then the higher level you go, the further downward, and of course dirty and poor and just like closer to like the engine room, kind of a thing. And so Price is really he has like a repair shop that he's been running in one of these really low levels. He kind of comes out of the woodwork, Price does, because he's received a message from his family that he is now supposed to enter into this arranged marriage with Kato. And Kato he wants to kind of like not rock the boat too much, I should say, because he is also kind of being investigated in a roundabout way with some missing people. So there's a little bit like that thread going through, like there's this like investigation going on into these missing people while he and Price are also kind of navigating this arranged marriage and getting to know each other. So I will say Kato is a little bit naive in a way because he's grown up kind of in this very wealthy status. And so he hasn't really had to hide his feelings too much. So he's more of like an open book. And Price, even though he kind of grew up in that same environment, he has really taken some past events to the heart and kind of keeps himself closed off. And then especially being around the people in the underground, he's kind of like built up this quote unquote facade. So he's kind of kept these walls up around him to not let people get too close to him. I don't want to say it's like an opposites attract because it's not really. I think Price, for all of his walls, actually feels things maybe a little bit deeper, or he allows them to create more of an impression on him than Kato is, maybe because Kato's allowed himself that freedom to express himself a little bit more. Not to mention that Kato's like a terrible liar on top of everything else. So there's a lot of like these secrets, and there's this action going on. It's got a little bit of that, and honestly, it's a little sci-fi in regards to like the technology, but I don't really feel like the actual science part played too much of a role in the storyline itself. It was really dealing with like class differences and like kind of like a revolution about like people who are trying to get out of certain situations. And it's just like it's kind of got this romance between these two threaded throughout it. I don't even know if I'd really call this a romance first. Maybe it can be considered more of like a plot forward story with the romance threaded throughout than an actual like just romance. But it's really cute when these two guys start to like allow the other to seep in and see a little bit more below the surface, when they start to trust each other and build this relationship, because they are kind of like in the same boat now. Like after certain events, Price kind of gets dragged into this investigation with Kato, and he's trying to keep both himself and Kato to a certain extent out of trouble. So there's a little bit of that going on as well. And there's like always this forward movement that's really nice. It's a really well done world building, and I thought the characters were a lot of fun and well developed. So I think there is another story by this author in like the same universe or same world even, but they're not really connected. So it's even though there is these two books that are like in the series in a sense, they're each kind of like a standalone. Like I didn't read the other one, and I don't think you have to, but I am intrigued to see if I like the other one like I like this one. There was just something like raw and honest about these two, and I just liked watching, especially Price, let down his guards and let somebody come in and support him in ways that he hasn't, and then also rebuild his connections with his family. It was a really fun read, and it was pretty quick too. I highly recommend it. Moving into a very different direction. Like we're gonna be all over the board this month, okay? The second one is Love's Ace by Lee McCormick. Now, I know I've talked about at least one of Lee's books before, and they're really good about writing dark stories. I think the book before dealt with like a serial killer. and it was one of those dark books where like the characters were awful, but like you didn't really care because it was just such a good, kind of like a guilty pleasure, but a little bit like, I wouldn't call it truly a guilty pleasure. This one, I wouldn't say that the characters are horrible people by any means. They're definitely not even people. So it's a supernatural dark story dealing with a Cupid and what they're known as their mortal enemies, the enmity. Ren is a Cupid, and Cupids are born, or not even born, they're kind of made into these, I don't want to say soldiers. They don't have the ability to love or feel that emotion, and yet they do go around and they do their Cupid's duty of like tying people who are in love together. But on top of that, they are in charge of killing these enmities who are their mortal enemies in this larger scope war between the two. Theo is a human who is becoming an enmity. So we've got this like enemies to lovers going on where Theo doesn't know what's going on, but as soon as Ren sees him, he can see what he's becoming. And normally Ren would have taken him out no problem, but there's a little hiccup in their first meetup and they get tied together. And now these guys are forced to spend time together while Theo is dealing with this transformation that's going on inside him. And honestly, Theo has a horrible backstory. He's been treated awfully by people in the past. Definitely been abused by past relationships, and one in particular. It's a brutal backstory. And so Ren's now dealing with all these emotions that are coming up because of this thread that he mistakenly tied them together with. It's just a really interesting take on the whole story. And these two guys have to learn how to trust. It's about like letting yourself be unguarded and allowing someone to come into your space when you're vulnerable. And these two build this relationship slowly, very slowly, but there is still this spark between them. So it's definitely not as low heat as the one before, but it's not terribly spicy either. It's kind of, I would say maybe like a 3 if I'm remembering right, 3 out of 5. The pacing was expertly done, and I loved all the side characters too. There's a lot of interesting stories going on there. There's this notion of fate that is kind of like thrown out there, and I'm curious to see if we get any more stories from this universe. I think the world building has been well done. It's not complicated, but there's a lot of details there, and I would just like to know, I just want to see some of the other characters and see how things turn out for them. There's kind of like a lot of puzzle pieces that are sliding into place during this story, and it would be interesting to see any of them from another perspective, which we'd probably only get from certain people's POVs. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but if Lee McCormick came out with another in this universe, I 100% I'm going to pick it up. I think Lee's writing is just really well done. I think this one, it's dark, but it's dark because of the difficult past that Theo has been in does come back up and rear its ugly head. Not to mention you do have this war going on, so there is like this thread of violence through it, but it's not dark in a depressing way. I don't think. I didn't really feel there was a book I read recently that did have like kind of like a depressing thread through it, and it didn't have that bit of darkness to it. So I would just say maybe go into this with a little bit of caution, but I do highly recommend checking out Lee McCormick, especially if you are a fan of dark stories, dark romance. This was fantastically done. Going into a story with dark things threaded throughout it, but once again, it's not a dark story, is The Mosquito's Sting by Alyk Thorne. Now, this is also a first by this author, and I'm actually really interested to see where this series is going, because it's the first in a series. So that it's not a cliffhanger, I would say, but it does end on a bit of an open ending because there are still plot lines and things that are not wrapped up. It's definitely fantasy. This is kind of like a high fantasy-ish read with modern dialogue, is the best way to say it. So I didn't mind it. It didn't throw me off so much having like the urban dialogue with the setting, but it could. I mean, if you really want your characters to sound like they're from medieval times or whatever, they will not. It's just something to know. It's like a preference, but it didn't bother me too much. But you know, sometimes people like their fantasy in a certain way, and this might not fit into a box. But we've got Ruin, who is a really interesting character. He is considered this powerful wizard, and in this realm, wizards tend to not live very long because they are tied to a demon, and just the amount of magic that they expand tends to shorten their lifespan. So the fact that Ruin is as old as he is and has been bounded for as long as he is kind of like a unique, and so it plays into how strong of a wizard he is. But yet he has also not been taken care of very well in the court that he serves. Has a bit of a definitely a traumatic backstory as well. But what I like about this character is that even though he's got these triggers and they do come up, he's not portrayed as broken in any manner. So he still has a lot of personality, a lot of sass. He still knows that he has all this like power at his beck and call in a way, but he's not become bitter. He still really wants to serve people. He's on this mission to bring magic back to the lands. He can see that the magic is dwindling, and so he's trying to figure out why and what he can do. And then this elf pops up, Yaris, and says, "Hey, I have also noticed that magic is leaving this world," and he gets permission from the king to take Ruin on this journey to figure out what exactly is going on and to bring magic back. And yet Yanis comes with his own set of baggage, and I feel like he actually has a representation of depression. There are like definitely moments of Yaris being on not a manic high, but he's like, okay, let's do this, let's go out, and then something will flip a switch, and all of a sudden he is very closed off, just leaves the party, for better words, and internalizes a lot. So I don't know whether they're gonna come out and say it, but I feel like he kind of is a good character that expresses depression. Just my take on it. It's just what it feels like to me. Like I said, there is an overarching plot that keeps everything moving, so that nothing kind of feels stagnant here. I do like the pace of the story, and the two, Yanis and Ruin, are able to build a foundation and into a relationship as they move through the various events happen. And then the side characters are a great addition. They're very well done. The side characters add a lot of depth to the story that we might not have gotten without them. We see Ruin interacting with his guards, and it says a lot about that relationship. There's another main-ish side character that comes up that I hope we get to see more of. There's some backstory with that, some hidden things going on there. Plus you get dragons. There's dragons here, and you can't go wrong with dragons. So the Mosquito Sting is an interesting story. It took me off guard a little bit. I wasn't sure what exactly to expect, but I really liked it, and now I'm invested in this world, and I want to see the happy and ever after. It's kind of like a happy for now, I think, is how it ends. So I'd like to get that completed feeling where we know the characters are in a good space at the end, which we haven't gotten yet. Still with the supernatural. So maybe there was a little bit of a supernatural thing. So far we're 3 for 3 here, or 3 for 4, I should say. The first one wasn't supernatural. We got Devoted by Lark Taylor, which, you know what, you can't go wrong with Lark Taylor. She's an incredible writer, very sweet characters. This one is an angel and human. Zeke is the angel. We got to see a little bit of him in the previous books. And then we have Sam, who's a human with OCD. So once again, you have a really big mental health rep in this book. And Sam's OCD is definitely taken inspiration from Lark's own OCD. And so I think it's very well portrayed, obviously. She definitely knows what she's talking about. And I think it's important that it doesn't always look as you expect it to look. So I did like how Sam kind of confronts some of the stereotypes people assume OCD comes with, and the intrusive thoughts that he just can't stop. And how then Lark made his mental health, the OCD disorder, a part of the supernatural world was kind of really touching in a way, I guess you could say. There's a scene for sure where Sam has a reaction and they believe it's because of the way his brain works. And I kind of like that. The supernatural world isn't a cure for everything, which is always nice to see. So it's not in spite of or because of, it's just another piece of him that Zeke has to know and live with. And we get to see Zeke slowly start to come in and take care of Sam. They have been talking on this online game. So there's an online game that they play, and then there's a dialogue between the two of them. Sam's convinced that nobody, of course, will ever want him because he's quote unquote too much work. And Zeke is waiting for his fated mate, so he doesn't want to he doesn't want to get invested in a relationship, if only to have his fated mate walk down the sidewalk, because once he meets his fated mate, his attention will move, and he feels it would be unfair to the person he's been in this relationship with. So he kind of keeps things online for a long time and kind of keeps himself back a bit because he's just afraid of that. And I think the scene where Zeke clicks with who his fated mate is well done. The switch that's flipped in his brain, and then he's just I get it now. I get it. And he really just puts everything in 100%, holds nothing back. And then the little touches that he does to make Sam's life easier is just very sweet, very, very thoughtful. I will say this is probably one of the least action-packed stories in this whole supernatural universe the Lark has written, but I didn't really miss the action because it was so focused on Zeke and Sam building this connection and dealing, and Zeke allowing himself to go for things that he wants and not letting his OCD and anxiety stop him. So it was kind of nice. It was focusing that's where like the focus was placed, and not on like anything external, although there are a few external, of course, threats to their relationship that are quickly dealt with. But really the focus is Zeke supporting Sam and showing that he's gonna be there over and over again in order for Sam to finally allow himself to believe that someone doesn't think he's too much, that he's worth the time and respect that he deserves. And I thought that was really well done. I'm of course looking forward to the other angels. I'm not sure who's up next. We got a couple twins who have some anger issues. We've got Noah, who has a sad past, so I mean he deserves some happy endings. And who knows who else is gonna pop up in Lark's universe. I'm down for it. I can't wait to see what else we got going on. It's always a blast. This one could technically be read on its own, but honestly, Lark's stories are so interconnected that I would kind of like go back and just read at least from the beginning of this series, if not all the way back to the Reckless Dam, I believe it is. All of them. Just go read all of Lark's books, okay? All of them. They're all connected. Even the ones you don't think they are. I will say, even the Caffeine Dreams, which is not supernatural, I think there is a cameo from one of our supernatural friends in that one. If not, they cameo in one of the other books. So it's like they're all still interconnected, even though those ones, to be fair, could definitely not. You don't have to read the Caffeine Dreams, but look, just read them all. You won't be disappointed, okay? Last but not least, we've got Toby Wise's Whisker Me Away, which this is an Omegaverse, but I loved it because it's two Omegas. So you don't get to see an Omega pairing very often in Omegaverse. I've seen obviously the Alpha Omega pairing, that's definitely most popular, and I've seen a good number of Alpha pairings too, which I adore, but you don't get to see too many Omega pairings, and it was really this one was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I want to see more, okay? I want to see more of this pairing. We have Spencer and Cade here, who have both won all paid trips without knowing that another person has won this trip. So they got this, put in like a radio show or something like that, and they get this email saying, "You've won." And they respond, and it turns out they both responded back. So now they're in a forced proximity, right, on this train, and they're to be traveling companions. And they luckily hit it off. There's a very cute getting to know each other scene. I don't want to spoil, but it alcohol is involved, okay? And I just thought the whole way that they went about it was very cute and just heartwarming. The pacing is well done again, and the characters actually have time. To set the foundations for the relationship. There's enough time on this vacation, I think, for them to actually get to know each other, and the spice between these guys. Fire. Chef kiss. Toby totally nailed their chemistry. I will say, I like Toby's stories. They're usually very low angst, very cute. A lot of the times, they're just not long enough, okay? Toby, write longer stories. I think it just gives more time to really flesh out the characters and really give a little bit of a more weight maybe, or an urgency. I don't know. There are a lot of times it's just like the stories are cute and they're really fun and they're really quick. But this one had just, I think, the right amount of length to it that you felt like you got to know them. You felt like they were all in it. I really liked both Spencer and Cade. They're different and yet they understand each other in a way. It's just a cute, adorable story, but the length did it for me this time. I feel like we actually got to know both characters pretty well. You get both POVs here, and you just leave yourself going, oh. I don't know. I was like, this story really made me want more. Maybe if they can be a little softer with two Omegas in a pairing before. Oh, man. On that note, tell me if you like an Omega manga pairing as well. I know Omegaverse isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I will say it's something that I never thought I'd get into. And I've read some that I just thought were okay. I think a lot of times it can reflect back maybe on society's treatment of certain groups of people in a way that you can kind of keep a little distance from yourself. So I always feel like it's when I read Omegaverse, there's a social commentary. More so than in any other types of stories I read. Not to say that you can't get that in like a contemporary. I have 100% seen that too. But when I read Omegaverse, I feel like you can see the author's view of social constructs and gender constructs and how they kind of play out, and it's always interesting to me on whether or not I'm comfortable or not comfortable with it. Sometimes I'm not. Like there are instances where I was like, you know what, the way that they treated such and such kind of character, I didn't like. It made me feel things. That's my hot take, maybe. I don't know. If you got some hot takes or reads, once again, put them in the comment section below. Hit that like button, hit subscribe so you can get all of my recommendations. And I will have a new batch. March, I'm just looking over what I got in the pipeline for March. I was gonna say not too many Supernatural, but I do like Supernatural a lot. You'll just have to stick around to see. All right, you guys. Happy readings. Take care.